The military ships arrived like thunder in space. Alex watched through the station's observation windows as 5 massive warships took positions around Station Kepler-7. Their weapons were not aimed at the station yet, but the threat was clear. One word from the right authority, and the station could be destroyed in minutes. Admiral Korth Prime, commander of the Hegemony Fleet, contacted the station directly. His image appeared on every screen throughout Station Kepler-7. The Altarian Admiral was old, experienced, and completely without mercy. "This is Admiral Korth Prime, speaking to all residents of Station Kepler-7. His voice echoed through the corridors. "A dangerous contamination event has occurred on your station. For the safety of all galactic citizens, this station is now under military quarantine. No ships may leave until the contamination is eliminated." Alex felt the weight of those words. Eliminated, not treated, not relocated, not managed. Eliminated. The crowd around Alex had grown to nearly 300 beings from 12 different species. They filled the entire corridor and spilled into adjacent areas. When Admiral Korth Prime's announcement ended, they all looked at Alex as if he might have answers. "What do we do now?" asked Vel Karn, the Centauran student who had first stood up to Captain Vexskar. Alex was about to answer when Katie Ross grabbed his arm. "Alex, look at this. We're getting communications from all over the galaxy." She showed him her portable display. Messages were flooding in from human ships, alien colonies, research stations, and even some government facilities. The broadcast had reached farther than they had imagined. "Listen to this one," Katie said, reading from her screen. "This is Captain Sarah Kim of the human colony ship New Horizon. We have 47 Vorthic refugees on board who are scheduled for relocation tomorrow. After seeing your broadcast, we are refusing to hand them over to authorities. We stand with Station Kepler-7. And this one," Dr. Morgan added, reading from her own device, "from the Rigel Medical Research Station. They have suspended all cooperation with hegemony health protocols pending an investigation into Vorthic treatment methods." Jake Morrison was monitoring military communications. "It's not just humans. There are alien ships changing course to come here too. Freighters, medical ships, even some government vessels. Whatever we started, it's spreading faster than the military can respond to." Alex looked at Zara and Kex. Both Vorthic were healthy now, their crystal plates fully regrown, their skin glowing with proper nutrition. They represented living proof that everything the galaxy had been told about their species was a lie. "We need to get them off the station," Alex said. "If Admiral Korth Prime decides to eliminate the contamination, Zara and Kex will be the first targets. Where can we go?" Zara asked. "Every system in the galaxy follows hegemony protocols." "Not every system," Jake said with a smile. "Human. Space operates under different rules." That was when the second surprise arrived. Another ship appeared on the station's sensors, but this one was not military. It was the UHS Nightingale, Dr. Morgan's medical frigate, arriving hours ahead of schedule. "This is Dr. Amanda Stone on the UHS Nightingale." A voice came over the communication system. "We are requesting immediate docking permission to provide humanitarian assistance." Admiral Korth Prime's response was immediate. "Negative, UHS Nightingale. This station is under military quarantine. Maintain your distance or be fired upon." "Admiral," Dr. Stone replied calmly, "we are operating under Article 12 of the Galactic Medical Assistance Treaty. We have the right to provide emergency medical aid to any station or ship in distress. There is no medical emergency here. Only a contamination event that requires military resolution. Admiral, we have monitored your communications. You have classified conscious beings as contamination. That is not a military matter. That is a medical matter, and it falls under our jurisdiction." Alex held his breath. Dr. Stone was directly challenging a military admiral's authority using legal technicalities. It was either very brave or very stupid, and Alex was not sure which. Admiral Korth Prohem was silent for a long moment. U.S. Nightingale, you have 5 minutes to withdraw from this system or be considered hostile. Admiral, Dr. Stone said, I should inform you that our actions here are being broadcast live to the Galactic Medical Council and the Human Defense Authority. Any attack on a medical vessel providing humanitarian aid will be considered an act of war. Another silence. Alex realized that Dr. Stone had just backed Admiral Korth Prime into a corner. If he attacked a medical ship, it would confirm everything that Alex's broadcast had suggested about the hegemony's true intentions. More ships were arriving. Human vessels, but also alien ships from species that had never cooperated with humans before. A Centauran research vessel, an Altarian merchant ship, even a small Draconian courier that probably had no business being anywhere near a military quarantine zone, not Captain Vex Scar, who had been silent during the military buildup, finally spoke. Administrator Vel Thorne, what are our orders? Administrator Vel Thorne looked around at the crowd of aliens surrounding Alex and his patients, at the growing fleet of ships outside the station, at the communications flooding in from across the galaxy. I need to contact the hegemony. Council for further instructions. There's no time, Captain Vexcar said. Admiral Korth Prime is demanding immediate action. That was when Zara did something that surprised everyone. She stepped forward, past the protective crowd, and activated the station's main communication system. Admiral Korth Prime, she said, her wind chime voice carrying clearly through the speakers. This is Zara of the Vorthic. I am the contamination you wish to eliminate. Admiral Korth Prime's image appeared on the screens again. He looked annoyed at being addressed directly by someone he considered a non-person. You are not authorized to use station communications, he said. I am not asking for authorization, Zara replied. I am asking for justice. You say my people are dangerous, but the only danger we represent is to your profits. You say we carry diseases, but the only disease here is the hatred you spread to justify our murder. Vorthic are classified as whatever you need us to be, Zara interrupted. When you want our minerals, we are primitive and need to be relocated for our own good. When we ask for medical care, we are contaminated and dangerous. When we try to tell the truth, we are eliminated. Alex watched as Zara spoke. 3 days ago, she had been dying alone in the tunnels, convinced that her life had no value. Now she was challenging the most powerful military officer in the sector. But you made a mistake, Admiral, Zara continued. You let humans see us as people. And once humans decide someone is worth saving, they don't give up. As if summoned by her words, more human ships dropped out of hyperspace. The cargo ship Strong Wind, a human patrol vessel. 3 civilian transports that had no military value, but carried the message that humans throughout the sector were willing to risk everything for the principle that no one should die alone. Admiral Korth Prime looked at his tactical display, showing dozens of ships from multiple species surrounding the station. His original plan had been simple. Arrive with overwhelming force, eliminate the problem quietly, and return to normal operations. But nothing about this situation was normal anymore. Admiral, came a new voice over the communication system. This is Ambassador Maria Santos of the Human Diplomatic Corps. We are prepared to negotiate a peaceful resolution to this situation. Alex had never heard of Ambassador Santos, but her timing was perfect. Admiral Korth Prime was a military officer, trained to solve problems with force. But he was also smart enough to recognize when a military solution would cause more problems than it solved. What do you propose, Ambassador? Admiral Korth Prime asked. First, Immediate medical amnesty for all Vorthic currently on this station and in surrounding space. Second, establishment of a joint commission to review hegemony medical protocols regarding all species. Third, protection for the medical personnel who discovered these protocol violations. And if we refuse? Ambassador Santos was quiet for a moment. Admiral, there are currently human medical ships in 47 systems throughout the galaxy, all of them treating Vorthic patients and broadcasting their findings. This situation is already beyond your ability to contain militarily. You can either be part of the solution, or you can explain to the Galactic Council why you started a war over the right to deny medical care to refugees. Admiral Korth Prime looked at his options. Destroy a station full of civilians from multiple species, attack medical ships providing humanitarian aid, and fight a war against an alliance that was growing stronger every minute. Or negotiate a solution that might save face for the hegemony while addressing the underlying problems. Stand down from combat readiness, Admiral Korth Prime ordered his fleet. Prepare for diplomatic talks. Alex felt the tension drain from his body. It was not over yet, but the immediate threat of violence had passed. 6 months later, Alex stood in the same clinic where he had first treated Zara. But now it was part of the Carter Zara Medical Center, a fully equipped hospital staffed by humans and aliens working together. The mineral treatments that had saved Zara and Kex were now standard medical knowledge, available to any Vorthic who needed them. The wreckage from the battle near Mars floated in space like broken toys. Admiral Vexstar studied the pieces of destroyed human ships on his screen. His scientists were excited about what they had found. "Sir, these ships are very interesting," reported Chief Scientist Morden. "They are not what they appeared to be." "What do you mean?" Vexstar asked, his burning eyes focused on the data. "The ships we destroyed were not carrying any crew. They were controlled by computers. But that's not the strange part. The strange part is what they were doing while we fought them." Vexstar leaned forward in his command chair. "Explain." "They were learning, sir. Every shot we fired, every move we made, they recorded it all. Then they sent that information somewhere else before they were destroyed." Back on Earth, Dr. Helen Foster was very busy. She worked in a secret underground lab that most people didn't know existed. The lab was filled with computers and screens, showing alien ship designs. "The drones did their job perfectly," Helen said to her team. "We now know exactly how their weapons work, how fast their ships can move, and how they think in battle." Her assistant, Dr. Mark Johnson, looked worried. "But Helen, we lost 12 ships to get this information. Even if they were just drones, that's a lot of resources." Helen smiled. "Mark, those weren't our real ships. Our real ships are somewhere else entirely." In the asteroid belt, Colonel Steve Parker was having the best day of his military career. For 15 years, he had been living on a rock called Mining Station Alpha 7. Everyone thought it was just a place where robots dug up metals and ice. They were very wrong. "All right, people," Steve called out to his crew. "The show is starting. Power up the real systems." The asteroid suddenly came alive. Hidden doors opened all over its surface. Weapon platforms rose from what looked like mining equipment. The boring gray rock transformed into a military fortress in minutes. Steve's communications officer, Lieutenant Danny Walsh, grinned as he watched his screens. "Sir, we have 37 other mining stations coming online. The aliens have no idea we're here." "Perfect," Steve said. "Now let's give them a surprise they'll never forget." The Korthic fleet was moving through the asteroid belt, confident and proud. They had beaten the human patrol ships easily. Earth would be just as easy to conquer. Then the asteroid started shooting at them. "What is happening?" Vexstar shouted as his ship shook from weapons fire. "Where are those shots coming from?" "The asteroid, sir," his tactical officer replied, his voice full of shock. "The mining stations are actually military bases. They've been hiding weapons inside fake mining equipment." Vextar watched in amazement as asteroids all around his fleet revealed themselves to be armed fortresses. Humans had been playing a game of hide and seek, and the Korthik had walked right into their trap. But the biggest surprise was still coming. Engineer Mike Davis sat in a small room on Terra Prime, looking at a wall of screens. Each screen showed a different alien ship. Mike had been waiting for this moment for 10 years. "Captain Sullivan," Mike called out over the radio, "the satellites are in position." Jake's voice came back immediately. "Are you sure about this, Mike? This technology has never been tested in real combat." "I'm sure, sir. The quantum entanglement system will work." "It has to work." Mike pressed a button, and everything changed. All around the solar system, what looked like simple communication. Satellites suddenly revealed their true purpose. They weren't just for sending messages. They were weapons that could talk to each other instantly, across millions of miles of space. The satellites began firing beams of energy that could cut through alien ship armor like it was paper. But what made them truly dangerous was that they all worked together. When one satellite learned the best way to hurt an alien ship, all the other satellites knew it immediately. "Impossible," Vextar whispered as he watched his ships being attacked by weapons that shouldn't exist. "Their technology is supposed to be primitive." On Earth's surface, General Kevin Brooks was standing in a command center buried deep underground. Around him, hundreds of people worked at computers and communication stations. "Major Thompson," Kevin called out to a woman in a military uniform, "are the missiles ready?" Major Lisa Thompson nodded. "Yes, sir. 1,000 missiles loaded and ready to fire." "But, sir, are you sure about this? These missiles don't carry normal warheads." "I'm sure, Lisa. Fire them all." The missiles launched from hidden sites all over Earth. They flew up into space toward the alien fleet. The Korthik ships saw them coming and got ready to defend themselves. "Primitive rockets," Vextar said with disgust. "Our defense systems will destroy them all." He was right. The Korthik weapons destroyed every single human missile before they could hit their targets. Vextar felt proud. These humans were no different from all the other species he had conquered. But then strange things started happening to his ships. "Sir," his chief engineer called out in panic, "we have problems. Systems are failing all over the fleet." "What kind of problems?" "I don't know, sir. It's like something is inside our computers, changing how they work." What the Korthik didn't know was that each missile had been filled with millions of tiny robots smaller than dust. When the missiles exploded, the robots spread out like invisible clouds. They floated through space until they found alien ships. Then they crawled inside, through any opening they could find. The tiny robots had been programmed by the smartest computer scientists on Earth. Their job was simple: learn how alien technology worked, then break it. Commander Tony Richards was still alive, hiding in the shadow of a large asteroid with the remains of his patrol fleet. His ship, the Liberty, was damaged, but still working. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "we're getting new orders from Earth Command." "What do they say?" "Phase 2 is beginning, sir. We're supposed to reveal ourselves and attack the alien rear guard." Tony smiled for the first time since the battle started. "Tell the fleet to get ready. It turns out we're not the last line of defense after all. We're the first line of attack." Hidden throughout the solar system, other human ships began powering up their engines. These weren't the small patrol vessels the aliens had fought before. These were warships built in secret, using technology that most humans didn't even know existed. Dr. Carl Johnson's revolutionary engines allowed the ships to move in ways that defied everything the Korthik knew about space combat. Human ships could suddenly change direction without slowing down, or accelerate so fast they seemed to teleport. Captain Beth Williams commanded one of these new ships, the Defiant. Her ship looked small and harmless from the outside, but it could change its shape and function depending on what kind of fight it was in. "All right, crew," Beth announced over the ship's speakers. "We've been hiding in this asteroid field for 3 years, waiting for this day. Time to show these aliens what human engineering can really do." The Defiant transformed from a sleek scout ship into a heavily armed battleship in less than 30 seconds. Armor plates slid into place, weapon ports opened, and shield generators came online. Admiral Vexstar watched his fleet fall apart around him. The tiny robots were spreading from ship to ship, making weapons fire at their own allies and causing life support systems to fail. The asteroids were still shooting at them with impossible accuracy. And now new human ships were appearing everywhere, moving in ways that made no sense. "How?" he asked out loud. "How is this possible?" His science officer, Morden, had been studying the human transmissions. "Sir, I think I understand. These humans have been preparing for this exact battle for many years. Maybe decades. That's impossible. We only decided to attack the system 3 months ago." "Sir, I don't think they were preparing for us specifically. I think they were preparing for anyone who might try to conquer them." Vexstar felt something he had never felt before in all his years of conquest. He felt afraid. The humans weren't fighting like the other species he had destroyed. Those species had fought to defend their homes. The humans were fighting like they had planned every move in advance, like they had been waiting for this moment their entire lives. For the first time since he became an admiral, Vexstar began to wonder if he might lose this battle. The Korthic fleet moved closer to Earth, but Admiral Vexstar was no longer feeling confident. His ships were breaking down one by one. The tiny robots from the human missiles were spreading like a disease through his fleet. "Report," Vexstar demanded. From his chief engineer, Zhikanar looked terrified. "Sir, the situation is getting worse. These microscopic machines are learning our technology faster than we can stop them. Every time we fix one system, they break 2 others. "How is that possible?" Vexstar asked. "Our technology is thousands of years more advanced than theirs. That's just it, sir. These machines don't try to understand our technology the same way we do. They learn by trial and error, but they do it millions of times per second. They're finding weaknesses we didn't even know existed." On the hidden side of the moon, Captain Rachel Green had been waiting patiently for 50 years. She was old now, with gray hair and wrinkled hands, but her eyes were still sharp and focused. "Darkside Station, this is Earth Command," came the voice over her radio. "You are cleared for Phase 3. Rachel smiled. She had been born on the moon, had grown up knowing this day might come, and had spent her entire adult life preparing for it. "All stations, this is Captain Green," she announced. "Open the doors. It's time to show our guests what we've really been building up here." The surface of the moon began to crack open. What looked like natural rock formations split apart to reveal massive weapon systems underneath. For 5 decades, humans had been secretly building the largest guns ever created. Hidden beneath the lunar surface, the railguns were enormous. Each one was 3 miles long and could fire projectiles at nearly the speed of light. Dr. Alan Murphy had designed them before he died, and his student Dr. Sandra Lewis had spent 30 years making them perfect. "Target acquisition complete," announced Lieutenant Tim Foster, Rachel's weapons officer. "We have clear shots at the alien command ships." "Fire," Rachel said calmly. The moon shook as the railguns fired. Streams of metal flew through space, so fast they were almost invisible. When they hit the alien ships, the results were devastating. Korthic vessels that had seemed invincible suddenly exploded in bright flashes of light. Impossible. Vexstar shouted as his flagship shook from impacts. Where did those shots come from? The moon, sir, his tactical officer replied in shock. The entire moon appears to be a weapon platform. Commander Tony Richards chose that moment to attack from behind. His small fleet of patrol ships had been hiding in the asteroid belt, waiting for the perfect opportunity. All ships, this is Liberty, Tony announced. Hit them hard and fast. Don't give them time to recover. But Tony wasn't commanding the same small ships the aliens had fought before. These vessels had been rebuilt using technology that seemed impossible. Dr. Carl Johnson's new engines allowed the ships to move in ways that defied physics. The Liberty suddenly accelerated to impossible speeds, then stopped instantly and changed direction without slowing down. To the Korthic, it looked like the human ship was teleporting around the battlefield. Their ships are cheating, Zekanor said in amazement. They're moving in ways that should tear them apart. Captain Beth Williams was having the time of her life. Her ship, the Defiant, was showing off everything human engineering could do. In the space of 5 minutes, her vessel transformed from a fast attack ship to a heavy bomber to a mobile shield generator. Let's show them our best trick, Beth announced to her crew. Transformed to siege mode. The Defiant's hull flowed like liquid metal, rearranging itself into a completely different shape. What had been a sleek warship became a massive mobile fortress covered in weapons. Ma'am, her weapons officer called out, we have targeting solutions on 12 enemy vessels. Light them up, Beth ordered. The transformed ship unleashed a storm of weapons fire that destroyed half a dozen alien ships in seconds. Then it immediately began changing shape again, becoming a fast scout to avoid return fire. The Korthic had never seen anything like it. Their ships were built for specific purposes and couldn't change. When they met an enemy, they either won with their original design or they lost. The idea of ships that could adapt during battle was completely foreign to them. Admiral Vexstar realized he was losing the battle. His fleet, which had seemed so powerful when it arrived, was being taken apart piece by human ingenuity. All ships, regroup Formation 7, he ordered. We need to coordinate our attacks. But the tiny robots were making coordination impossible. When Korthic ships tried to communicate with each other, the messages got scrambled. When they tried to fire at the same target, their weapons aimed at different things. Captain Jake Sullivan was coordinating the orbital defense from Terra Prime. He watched his screens as the battle unfolded around Earth. Sir, Lieutenant Amy Carter called out. The space elevators are ready for Phase 4. Jake nodded. The space elevators had been one of humanity's greatest engineering achievements. Giant cables that stretched from Earth's surface to orbit, allowing cheap and easy access to space. The aliens had dismissed them as primitive infrastructure. They were wrong. Engineer Tim Brown had designed the elevators with a secret purpose. They weren't just for transportation. They were also the biggest slingshots ever built. Fire the kinetic bombardment system, Jake ordered. The space elevators began launching projectiles with incredible precision. Using the Earth's rotation and carefully calculated trajectories, they could hit individual alien ships from thousands of miles away. The projectiles were simple chunks of metal, but they hit with the force of nuclear bombs. The aliens watched in horror as their ships were destroyed by what appeared to be thrown rocks. Sir, Morden reported to Admiral Vexstar, we're receiving reports from across the Empire. Human agents are attacking our installations on 17 different worlds. Vexstar felt his blood turn cold. What do you mean, human agents? Apparently, humans have been infiltrating our space for decades. Agent Gary White has been leading sabotage operations throughout our territory. The moment we attacked Earth, it was a signal for them to begin coordinated strikes across our empire. The admiral realized that this battle was not just about conquering Earth. The humans had turned it into a war for the survival of the Korthuk Empire itself. Dr. Helen Foster was monitoring the battle from her underground laboratory. The information from the drone ships had been invaluable, but she had one more surprise for the aliens. Release the nanobots Phase 2, she ordered her team. The tiny robots that had been infiltrating Korthik ships suddenly began a new mission. Instead of just breaking technology, they started releasing chemical compounds into the alien ships' air systems. The Korthik were a naturally aggressive species. Violence and conquest were part of their biology. But the chemicals the nanobots released changed that. For the first time in their lives, Korthik soldiers began to feel empathy and doubt. "Sir," one of Vextar-S officers said hesitantly, "I'm beginning to question whether this war is necessary. These humans seem to be defending themselves, not attacking us." Vextar stared at his subordinate in shock. No Korthik had ever questioned orders before. It was not in their nature. "What is wrong with you?" Vextar demanded. "I don't know, sir. I just keep thinking about all the worlds we've conquered, all the people we've killed. Was it really necessary?" Similar conversations were happening all over the Korthik fleet. The nanobots were making them think about their actions in ways they never had before. Captain Rachel Green launched another volley from the lunar railguns. "Target their command ship," she ordered. "Let's end this." The moon's weapons fired again, and Admiral Vextar's flagship shook under the impact. His bridge was filled with smoke and sparks. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the human planet." "Put it through," Vextar said, expecting another demand for surrender. Instead, he heard something he never expected. President Lisa Adams' voice was calm and kind. "Admiral Vextar, this is President Adams of Earth. We know you've been watching us, and we've been watching you too. We know about the 17 worlds you've conquered, and we know about the people you've killed, but we also know why you did it." Vextar listened in amazement as the human leader continued. "Your own world was destroyed long ago. You became conquerors because you were afraid and desperate. We understand that. But there's another way to live. We'd like to show you what that way looks like." For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Vextar began to wonder if there really was another way. Admiral Vextar tried to gather his scattered fleet, but everything was going wrong. The tiny human machines had spread through his ships like poison. Weapons that should fire at human targets were shooting at other Korthik vessels instead. "Report." From engineering, Chief Engineer Zeke Honor called out, his voice full of panic. "The nanobots have infected our main computer systems. They're turning our own technology against us." "How bad is it?" Vextar demanded. "Very bad, sir. Our life support systems are failing in random patterns. Some ships can't breathe, others are too hot or too cold, and our weapons keep targeting the wrong enemies." The nanobots had been programmed by Dr. Frank Miller, Earth's best computer scientist. Frank had studied Korthik technology for years, learning exactly how their systems worked. The tiny machines didn't just break things randomly. They were smart. They knew exactly what to break to cause the most problems. On one Korthik ship, the artificial gravity system started spinning the crew around like they were in a washing machine. On another, the food recycling system began producing only bitter paste that made everyone sick. A third ship found that its navigation computer thought it was flying backwards. President Lisa Adams stood in the White House communication room, surrounded by screens showing the battle in space. She had been preparing for this moment her entire political career. "Open a channel to the Korthik fleet," she ordered. "All frequencies." "Channel open, Madam President," her communications officer replied. Lisa looked directly into the camera that would broadcast her message across space. Admiral Vextar, this is President Adams. I want to tell you something your leaders never did. We've known about your empire for over 100 years. In his damaged command ship, Vextar listened in shock. One of our people, Agent Mary Roberts, infiltrated your space in 1955. She lived among your people for 30 years, learning your language, your customs, and your military secrets. Everything you're seeing today, we built specifically to counter your weapons and tactics. Agent Mary Roberts was now an old woman, but she was still sharp and clever. She had spent 3 decades living as a Cortex citizen, working her way up through their civilian government. The aliens never suspected that the quiet bureaucrat in their transportation department was actually a human spy. Mary had sent detailed reports back to Earth about Cortex ship designs, weapon capabilities, and battle strategies. Every piece of human technology in this battle had been designed with her intelligence in mind. The asteroid mining stations that Colonel Steve Parker commanded weren't just hidden. They had been built to exploit specific weaknesses in Cortex ship armor that Mary had discovered. The weapons fired projectiles at exactly the right frequency to disrupt Cortex shield generators. All mining stations, this is Parker, Steve, announced over the radio. Switch to Phase 4 ammunition. Target their engine sections. The asteroids began firing special projectiles that were designed to shut down Cortex engines without destroying the ships completely. Steve didn't want to kill the alien crews if he could avoid it. He wanted to disable them so they could be captured and talked to. Meanwhile, Director John Smith was overseeing the most impressive display of human manufacturing capability in history. The asteroid factories that everyone thought were mining operations began producing thousands of small attack drones. Release the swarm, John ordered. Hunter-killer drones poured out of hidden bays throughout the asteroid belt. Each drone was controlled by an artificial intelligence system that Dr. Lucy Adams had spent 15 years perfecting. The AI learned from every battle, sharing information instantly with all other drones. The Cortex had never faced anything like it. Each drone was small and weak, but there were so many of them, and they worked together perfectly. When one drone learned the best way to attack a specific type of Cortex ship, all the other drones knew it immediately. Sir, Morden reported. To Vextar, the small attack craft are learning faster than we can adapt. Every defensive measure we take, they counter within minutes. Captain Jake Sullivan watched the battle from Terra Prime with satisfaction. The space elevators were performing exactly as engineer Tim Brown had designed them. The massive structures were launching projectiles with incredible accuracy. Target the alien communication ships, Jake ordered. Cut off their ability to coordinate. The space elevators fired again. Metal slugs traveling at enormous speeds struck the Cortex communication vessels with perfect precision. Without their communication ships, the alien fleet couldn't work together effectively. But Jake had another surprise waiting. Amy, activate the Information Warfare Protocol. Lieutenant Amy Carter smiled as she pressed a series of buttons. Information missiles launching now, sir. The information warfare missiles were one of humanity's strangest weapons. They didn't carry explosives or metal projectiles. Instead, they carried computer viruses and hacking programs designed to break into alien communication networks. When the missiles reached the Cortex fleet, they exploded into clouds of radio signals and data packets. The signals invaded every Cortex communication system, flooding their networks with information. But it wasn't random information. It was the true history of the 17 civilizations the Cortex had supposedly conquered. For the first time, ordinary Cortex soldiers learned that their empire had been lying to them. The 17 worlds hadn't been peacefully integrated, as their leaders claimed. They had been completely destroyed. Billions of innocent people had been killed. Sir, One of Vextar's bridge officers said quietly. I'm reading reports from across the fleet. Our soldiers are learning about what we really did to those other worlds. Vextar felt something crack inside his chest. The nanobots were making him feel emotions he had never experienced before. Guilt, shame, regret. Are the reports true? The officer asked. Did we really kill all those people? Before Vextar could answer, more reports came in from across Korthic space. Agent Gary White's sabotage operations were succeeding beyond anyone's wildest expectations. Gary had been leading a network of human agents throughout the Korthic Empire for 20 years. When the attack on Earth began, it was the signal for all of them to strike at once. Korthic military bases found their weapon systems shut down. Supply depots discovered that their food and fuel had been replaced with harmless substitutes. Communication. Relays went silent. Transportation networks ground to a halt. Sir, Zekener reported with growing horror. We're receiving reports from the home worlds. The humans have agents everywhere. Our entire infrastructure is collapsing. But the most shocking reports came from Captain Rachel Green's lunar base. The moon's railguns weren't just defensive weapons. They were launching rescue ships. All liberated vessels. This is Darkside Control, Rachel announced. You are cleared for immediate departure to the rally points. Commander Tony Richards was leading a strike force to free prisoners that most people thought were dead. The 17 civilizations that the Korthic had conquered hadn't been completely destroyed. Their survivors had been secretly evacuated by human rescue teams and hidden on human worlds for decades. Liberty to all ships, Tony announced as his fleet approached a Korthic prison facility. The Zelthan survivors are in Section 7. Get them out of there. The Zelthan were a peaceful species of scholars and artists. The Korthic had attacked their world 50 years ago, but human agents had managed to save nearly 1 million of them. They had been living quietly on human colonies, waiting for the day they could return home. Captain Beth Williams was coordinating similar rescue operations throughout Korthic space. Her shape-shifting ship was perfect for infiltration missions. A Fiant. To Rescue Command, Beth reported. We've successfully evacuated the Terran refugee camp. 300,000 survivors are now safely aboard our transport ships. The Terrans were an ancient species that looked almost human. The Korthic had conquered their world over a century ago, but again, human agents had saved many of them. General Kevin Brooks was coordinating all of these operations from his command center on Earth. His screens showed rescue missions happening across dozens of star systems. This was never just about defending Earth, Kevin announced to his staff. This was about ending the Korthic Empire's reign of terror permanently. Dr. Sandra Lewis was monitoring the railgun systems from the moon when she noticed something interesting. The chemical compounds that Dr. Helen Foster's nanobots were releasing weren't just making the Korthic feel empathy. They were making them remember things their leaders had made them forget. Captain Green, Sandra called out. The aliens are starting to remember their original homeworld, the one that was destroyed before they became conquerors. Rachel nodded grimly. The Korthic Empire had been built on tragedy. Their own planet had been destroyed by an ancient enemy, forcing them to become refugees. But instead of asking for help, they had chosen to become conquerors themselves. Maybe it's time someone offered them a better choice, Rachel said quietly. Admiral Vextar stood on his damaged bridge, watching his empire fall apart around him. His fleet was defeated. His infrastructure was collapsing. His soldiers were questioning everything they had been taught. The battle around Earth was almost over, but Admiral Vextar was getting reports that made his head spin. The war wasn't just happening here. It was happening everywhere across his empire at the same time. Sir, his communications officer said, with a shaking voice, Agent Gary White has taken control of our main military academy on Korthik Prime. He's broadcasting to our homeworld. Vexstar watched in amazement as a human face appeared on his main screen. Gary White looked like an ordinary middle-aged man, but he spoke perfect Korthik language. "Citizens of the Korthik Empire," Gary said calmly. "My name is Gary White, and I am a human from Earth. For 20 years, I have lived among you as one of you. I have worked in your factories, eaten in your restaurants, and taught your children." The alien admiral felt sick. A human had been living in the heart of his empire for 2 decades, and nobody had noticed. "I want you to know," Gary continued, "that this war did not have to happen. Earth sent peaceful messages to your leaders 50 years ago, offering friendship and trade. Your government chose to ignore those messages and plan for conquest instead. On 17 different worlds throughout Korthik space, similar scenes were playing out. Human agents who had been hiding for decades suddenly revealed themselves. They weren't soldiers or spies in the traditional sense. They were teachers, doctors, engineers, and artists who had spent years helping Korthik civilians. Dr. Helen Foster was watching all of this from her laboratory on Earth. The nanobots spreading through the Korthik fleet had done more than just break their technology. They had broken the mental conditioning that made the Korthik a warlike species. "Phase 5 is working perfectly," Helen reported to her team. "The chemical compounds are allowing them to access memories and emotions their own government suppressed." The Korthik had not always been conquerors. Centuries ago, they had been a peaceful species of explorers and philosophers. But when their whole world was destroyed, their leaders decided that the only way to survive was to become stronger than anyone who might threaten them. Captain Rachel Green watched from the moon as more Korthik ships stopped fighting. Their crews were not surrendering because they were defeated. They were surrendering because they no longer wanted to fight. "This is Captain Keitel of the warship Void Hunter," came a transmission from one of the alien vessels. "We request permission to lay down our weapons." Rachel had been expecting this. "Permission granted, Captain Keitel. Please power down your weapon systems and prepare to receive humanitarian aid." "Humanitarian aid?" Keitel asked, confused. "Yes, Captain. We know your life support systems are failing because of the nanobots. We're sending repair crews to help fix them." Keitel was silent for a long moment. In all his years of military service, no enemy had ever offered to help repair his ship. Commander Tony Richards was leading the most important mission of the war. His fleet had reached the hidden prison world where the Korthik kept their most valuable captives. But these weren't ordinary prisoners. "Liberty to all ships," Tony announced. "We've found them. The survivors are real." The 17 civilizations that the galaxy thought were extinct were very much alive. Human rescue teams had been secretly evacuating them for decades, always staying one step ahead of the Korthik military. On the surface of the prison world, Captain Beth Williams led a ground team through massive underground facilities. What she found there broke her heart and filled her with hope at the same time. "Base Command, this is Williams," she reported over her radio. "We have approximately 2 million survivors from the Hasari civilization. They've been kept in suspended animation for 30 years. The Hasari had been artists and musicians before the Korthik attacked their world. The aliens had kept them alive because they found their music beautiful, but they had never allowed them to wake up. Begin revival procedures, came the order from Earth Command. It's time for them to go home. Similar rescue operations were happening across the galaxy. The Mintaka survivors, who were master engineers, were found in labor camps where they had been forced to build Korthik weapons. The Alteron survivors, who were natural healers, had been kept as medical slaves. That all of them were being freed at the same time. Dr. Sandra Lewis was monitoring the nanobots' effect on Korthik psychology when she noticed something remarkable. Aliens weren't just remembering their past. They were remembering who they used to be before they became conquerors. "Captain Green," Sandra called out from her station on the moon. "The Korthik crews are starting to help with the rescue operations." It was true. Korthik soldiers who had been fighting humans just hours before were now working alongside human rescue teams to free prisoners from their own empire's camps. Admiral Vextar received a report that changed everything he thought he knew about the war. "Sir," Morton said quietly, "I've been analyzing the human communication networks. They've known about us for over 200 years. "What do you mean?" "Earth has been in contact with dozens of spacefaring civilizations for centuries. They've been secretly helping other species defend themselves against various threats. We weren't their first enemy, sir. We were just the latest." Vextar stared at the tactical display showing the battle around Earth. It wasn't really a battle anymore. It was a rescue operation. Human ships were moving between disabled Korthak vessels, providing medical aid and technical assistance. "Sir," his weapons officer said hesitantly, "the humans are fixing our ships." "What?" "They're sending engineering teams to repair the damage caused by the nanobots. They say they don't want anyone to die unnecessarily." Agent Mary Roberts appeared on Vextar's communication screen. She was an elderly human woman with kind eyes and gray hair. "Hello, Admiral," Mary said in perfect Korthik language. "We've never been properly introduced." "I'm Mary Roberts. I lived on your capital world for 30 years. Vextar recognized her immediately. She had worked in the transportation department. He had seen her in government buildings hundreds of times. "You were spying on us," he said, double quotes. "Yes, I was. But I was also trying to understand you. Did you know that your people produce the most beautiful poetry in the galaxy? I spent years studying Korthik literature and philosophy. Your species has so much to offer the universe. Then why are you destroying us?" Mary smiled sadly. "We're not destroying you, Admiral. We're freeing you. Your own government has been drugging your population for generations, suppressing the parts of your nature that made you peaceful and creative." General Kevin Brooks was coordinating the largest humanitarian operation in galactic history. Across 17 star systems, human forces were not just defeating Korthik military units. They were liberating Korthik civilians from their own oppressive government. "All units, this is Brooks," the general announced. "Remember the Korthik. People are victims too. Treat them with the same respect you'd show any other refugee population." On Korthik Prime, Gary White was leading a peaceful revolution. The planet's civilians, no longer under the influence of government mind control drugs, were demanding answers from their leaders. "Why didn't you tell us about the other species?" Angry Korthik citizens asked their government officials. "Why? Did you make us into killers?" President Lisa Adams made one final broadcast to the Korthik fleet. "Admiral Vextar, your war is over, but your people's future is just beginning. We're offering every Korthak citizen a choice. You can continue trying to build an empire based on fear and conquest, or you can join the Galactic Council and help us build something better." "What is the Galactic Council?" Vextar asked. "It's an alliance of 43 different species working together to explore the galaxy peacefully. We've been waiting for the Korthik to join us for a very long time." Vextar looked around his damaged bridge. His crew was staring at him, waiting for his decision. For the first time in his military career, he had to choose between war and peace. Nanobots had cleared his mind of the artificial aggression his government had programmed into him. He could remember his childhood when he had wanted to be an explorer, not a conqueror. "I choose peace," Admiral Vextar said quietly. Across the Korthik fleet, other commanders were making the same choice. 6 months after the battle, Admiral Vextar stood on the observation deck of Unity Station, watching ships from dozens of different species work together to build something amazing. The space station was huge, floating in the asteroid belt where the battle had taken place. It's hard to believe this is the same place where we tried to destroy each other, Vextar said to Captain Jake Sullivan, who was standing beside him. Jake nodded, watching a Korthic construction crew working alongside human engineers. The best way to heal from a war is to build something together. Unity Station was the first truly integrated space facility in galactic history. Humans worked next to Korthic. The Zelfin survivors shared their art with the Hesari musicians. The Mintaka engineers taught everyone new ways to build things that lasted forever. Dr. Helen Foster had spent months working with Korthic scientists to develop new medical treatments. The mind-control drugs that had made the Korthic aggressive were finally being removed from their systems completely. The brain chemistry changes are remarkable, Helen explained to Dr. Sandra Lewis as they watched former Korthic soldiers learning to paint from Hesari artists. Once we removed the artificial chemicals, their natural creativity returned almost immediately. President Lisa Adams was in her office on Earth, meeting with representatives from all 46 species in the new Galactic Council. The 3 newest members were the Korthic and 2 other species that had been freed during the recent conflicts. The integration process is going better than we hoped, reported Agent Mary Roberts, who now served as Earth's ambassador to the former Korthic worlds. Most of their planets have voted to join the Council voluntarily, but not everything was perfect. There were still problems to solve. General Kevin Brooks walked into the President's office with a serious expression on his face. Madam President, we have a situation developing at the edge of the galaxy. What kind of situation? Lisa asked. Our long-range sensors have detected a new fleet approaching, much larger than the Korthic Empire ever was, and they're not responding to our communication attempts. Colonel Steve Parker was back in the asteroid belt, but this time he wasn't hiding weapons inside fake mining stations. He was building real mining stations that would help feed and supply the growing galactic community. Steve, came a voice over his radio. It was Commander Tony Richards, calling from his patrol ship. We need to talk. Something big is coming. The 2 old soldiers met on Steve's command asteroid. Through the transparent aluminum windows, they could see Unity Station in the distance, its lights twinkling like a small city. How big? Steve asked. Bigger than anything we've ever seen. The advanced scouts report thousands of ships, maybe tens of thousands, and they're using technology we don't recognize. Captain Rachel Green was still commanding the lunar defense systems, but now they served a different purpose. A massive railguns had been converted into construction tools, helping to build new space habitats for the rescued populations. Captain, her communications officer called out, we're getting a priority message from Deep Space Monitoring Station Alpha. Rachel put the message on her main screen. What she saw made her heart skip a beat. The new fleet was massive, dark, and moving with purpose toward the inner galaxy. Get me Earth Command, Rachel ordered. We need to warn everyone. Dr. Carl Johnson was working in his laboratory on Europa, Jupiter's moon, when the emergency alert came through. His revolutionary engine designs had helped win the war against the Korthic, but he had been working on something even more advanced. If this new enemy is as dangerous as the reports suggest, Carl said to his assistant, we're going to need ships that can do things we've never done before. Captain Beth Williams was training a mixed crew of humans and former Korthic soldiers when the alert reached her ship. The Defiant had been upgraded with technology from all the member species of the Galactic Council. All right, people, Beth announced to her crew. Looks like we're going back to war. But this time, we won't be fighting alone. The Korthic members of her crew nodded grimly. They had learned what it meant to fight for peace instead of conquest. They were ready to defend their new way of life. Agent Gary White was on the former Korthic capital world, helping to establish the planet's first democratic government when news of the new threat arrived. Gary called his assistant, a young Korthic woman named Zara, who had become one of his closest friends. The council is calling an emergency session. What do we know about these new aliens? Gary asked as they walked toward the government building. Not much. They call themselves the Devourers. They don't seem interested in conquest or negotiation. They just destroy everything in their path. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything that had ever happened before. Representatives from 46 different species gathered in the Great Hall of Unity Station. Admiral Vexstar stood up to address the assembly. 6 months ago, he had been humanity's greatest enemy. Now he was one of their closest allies. Friends, Vexstar began, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. The Devourers destroyed my people's original homeworld over 300 years ago. That's what turned us into conquerors. We thought if we became strong enough, we could protect ourselves from them. But they're back, added President Lisa Adams, standing beside the former admiral. And this time, they're not just targeting one world. They're targeting the entire galaxy. Dr. Frank Miller had been working on new computer systems that could coordinate defense efforts across multiple star systems. The good news is that we're not the same species we were when they first attacked. We've learned to work together. Engineer Tim Brown stood up from his seat among the human delegation. Our industrial capacity has grown by a factor of 10 since the Korthic joined us. We can build defenses that were impossible before. Captain Jake Sullivan was chosen to coordinate the new defense effort. He looked out at the assembly, seeing humans working with Korthic, Zelfin standing beside Hezari, Mintaka talking with Alteron. The Devourers think they're facing the same scattered, divided galaxy they conquered before, Jake said. They have no idea what we've built together. Lieutenant Amy Carter, now promoted to Major, was coordinating communication between all the member worlds. We have 6 months before they reach the outer colonies. 6 months to prepare. The preparation began immediately. Every shipyard in. The galaxy started building new vessels using combined technology from all 46 species. The asteroid mining stations were converted back to weapons factories. But this time, they were building defenses for everyone. Director John Smith oversaw the construction of the largest fleet in galactic history. But these weren't just warships. They were mobile cities that could evacuate entire populations, if necessary. Dr. Helen Foster worked with medical teams from every species to develop treatments for devourer weapons. The new enemy used biological warfare that could kill entire planets. Captain Rachel Green's lunar railguns were upgraded with Korthak targeting systems and Mintaka power sources. The moon became a fortress that could protect the entire inner galaxy. As the months passed, something remarkable happened. The threat of the Devourers didn't divide the galactic community. It brought them closer together. Species that had never worked together before shared their most advanced technology freely. Commander Tony Richards led a mixed fleet on scouting missions to the galaxy's edge. His ships contained crews from 12 different species, all working together with perfect coordination. Command, this is Liberty, Tony reported back to Unity Station. We've made contact with the Devourer advanced scouts. They're definitely hostile, but they seem confused by our ship designs. They're not sure what they're facing. Admiral Vexstar smiled when he heard the report. They're expecting to fight the same weak, divided species they conquered before. They have no idea that the galaxy has learned to work as one. The final battle was still to come, but everyone knew that this time would be different. The Devourers had destroyed Vexstar's world when the Korthik stood alone. They had threatened Earth when humanity stood alone. But now, nobody stood alone. President Lisa Adams made one final broadcast to the entire galaxy. Citizens of the Galactic Council, the enemy that destroyed worlds in the past, is returning. But they're not facing the same galaxy they left behind. They're facing all of us, working together, standing as one. In the great hall of Unity Station, children from dozens of different species played together while their parents prepared for war. Human children taught Korthic youngsters how to build model ships. Zelthan children shared their music with Hisari children. Captain Beth Williams watched them play and smiled. "This is what we're really fighting for," she said to Admiral Vextar. "Not just our worlds or our lives. We're fighting for the future those children represent." The Admiral nodded, watching a human child and a young Korthic working together to solve a puzzle that neither could solve alone. The Devourers think strength. "Comies from fear and conquest," Vextar said quietly. "They're about to learn that real strength comes from hope and friendship." The new war was beginning, but the galaxy was ready. And for the first time in galactic history, they would face the darkness together.